changing yourself is by far one of the most difficult things to do. It's going to be hard, and some people cannot do it alone. When peace in the heart and peace in the mind becomes an idea that you're suspicious about, or it feels wrong to have a peaceful mind, or it feels wrong to have a peaceful heart, the answer to that is really simple, is that your heart has become so used to the war, the inner civil war, and the emotional turmoil and trauma that's been going on for years that you can't tell the sharks from the guppies anymore. You can't tell the difference between mental and emotional peace and that inner trauma that you've experienced over the years. And if you want to change, any kind of change, there's a difference between wanting it and actually doing it, actually taking the plunge, going forward. But it's all about asking the most difficult questions. I'm not talking about shadow work here. I'm talking about asking the hard questions. That's when everything begins. That's when things dynamically begin to move in a better direction. When you ask, honestly, how they will be different or what you want to be different, a lot of people assume that they want the change, but actually doing it becomes difficult. But don't look at just the current habits, because a lot of that emotions and trauma that you've been playing all in your head for the years, it's helped you survive, it's helped you cope, but it has become your own box. It's keeping you locked in, totally. So don't look at just the current habits. Don't look at that. Start asking the harder, deeper questions. You have to strip away the onion layers until the truth is revealed underneath. When you finally get to a point where there's an insight is neutral information that provides you with a direction of wisdom. It can keep you boxed in. It can keep you locked in to a certain mentality. It can narrow your thinking. You're hitting a plateau. You're going to have a big realization, and it can feel like it's the final answer, but it can actually turn into the new mental box that your brain and your trauma and your heart is trapped inside of. So instead of setting yourself free, breaking out of that emotional cage, it becomes another story. It becomes another part of you. You could say that once you get boxed in emotionally, where your head and your heart start slapping up against each other, then you're in another emotional area that you feel locked inside of. So where does the change begin? Well, it starts when you notice it. The journey starts through self-awareness. When you question your patterns, when you question your beliefs, and you start to look at what's going on underneath emotionally, then the change can actually happen. You don't need to push. You don't need to force. It's not it at all. Awareness is what begins the race. Awareness itself gives you momentum, but it's action along the way. And that action provides you with evidence. And that evidence boosts your confidence as a result. You don't need to find yourself outside of you. One of my friends growing up, we were going to go to Thailand, and he's like, oh, I want to find myself. I want to go with you. I was like, you're not going to find yourself in Thailand. You're going to find yourself on the inside of what's really going on. So you don't need to find your new self. The problem is it's not the idea that you have no identity at all. It's not the case. Like you have to find your identity outside of you. No, it's not even being fully connected to that idea. It's about being honest, brutally honest with your feelings, so you can actually get clear on what's going on. You get clear and you become stable just a little bit at a time. Being real with yourself is the real work. It's going to suck. It's going to be painful. But we've gotten so used to our pains and our trauma that I call it the old sneaker concept. That it's an old sneaker, the pain and trauma is there, but you've gotten so comfortable with it. That this is all I know, this is all I am. And that's where peace in the heart and peace in the mind feels suspicious. It feels like it's a problem. But when you start to pay attention to what's happening inside of yourself, you start to be honest with yourself, you remain present. You learn to sit with that boredom. You learn to sit with those emotions. It's not going to be comfortable. It never was. It was never designed to be comfortable. And that's why a lot of people ask me. They come to me and talk to me. Happens a lot. It's about staying present of what's going on inside of you long enough to actually recognize what the hell is happening inside of you. Because you're already in the process of changing. You don't need to fight it. You don't need to wrestle it anymore. You don't need to struggle with it anymore. Your job is to simply notice that it's there, understand that it's there, and understand its existence. Identity is dynamic. It is dynamic. We believe it's not dynamic because we believe we are only our story. We believe that we are only able to do X. That fixed-based mindset plays into how you see yourself. You either have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And that's how we learn, and those two mindsets connect directly to our identity, the identity of who we are. And that's the work of Carol Dweck, by the way. Fixed-based and growth-based. It has nothing to do with me, but I understand it very clearly because your identity is indeed dynamic. Your story is also dynamic. You are a constant unfolding every single day. You're not fixed, finished, or complete. You're not done. Just because you reach a PhD or you get your degree or you graduate, the journey is endless. Being content with who you are on the inside, that is going to matter on your journey. That is going to seriously matter. That comes down to accepting who you are, understanding who you are on the inside. So before you decide to transform on the inside, because there's a lot of people out there. We have a lot of psychology out there. We have a lot of psychiatry. We have all these YouTubes. We have all these channels. We have all these things. We have such a great community now for actual development, to develop ourselves, to actually create change. Everybody knows what a narcissist is, but no one knows how to actually work through it themselves. Everybody knows what a rude person can be like, but no one knows how to actually utilize their communication to get away from being so rude, right? The change happens with you. It happens when you actually notice it. We are living in a world where the big Grand Canyon between knowing everything about psychology on the internet, knowing all these traits about other people and knowing all these things, but not knowing how to apply it, applying all of it. And getting into that's where the real work actually is. Because it's not about forcing yourself anymore. It's about paying attention, going deeper, being honest with yourself, and staying present inside your emotions long enough to realize what the hell is actually happening. You're going to be uncomfortable. Even though you have that old sneaker is falling apart. You're going to be uncomfortable. That old sneaker is uncomfortable. The problem is when that old sneaker, all that trauma and emotion, we've gotten comfortable with it, but we confuse the discomfort with failure because what you're trying to do is you're trying to move forward and you've gotten so used to feeling comfortable with those negative feelings that when you try to move forward and try to change, a lot of discomfort goes on and we think that that's a failure. In other words, feeling your feelings fully. And if you're unable to do it, if you're unable to feel it emotionally, when things feel emotionally uncomfortable, our brains start to say, something must be wrong here. Something must be wrong. Because when that uncomfortable feeling happens inside of you, it happens when those old habits, those old pieces of you, that old identity is being straight up challenged in some way, shape, or form. It's not always a warning message. It's not always like that. It's just to be understood that you're adjusting a little at a time because your identity is a constant. It is constantly unfolding and it's built over time. You become what you repeat. You become what you absorb. It doesn't have to be your truth. It comes from the repeating of the pattern. So a lot of people don't discover, quote unquote, who they are. They figure out through self-awareness that I've been running this pattern, it's been happening for a long time, and they start believing that those patterns are actually their identity and who the hell they are. That means that identity is more like a habit idea than it is an actual fixed truth. But I'm here to tell you that identity is dynamic. It's dynamic to the point where your brain argues for its own limits and limitation. So in other words, once you break past your own limitations of who you think you are, once you break past that, you start to realize that you're a whole lot bigger and a whole lot more than who you thought you were. That's what I mean by it's like a habit memory if you think about it that way. And people get hooked up in control. It's all about control nowadays. Because like, oh, I gotta somehow, work on my traumas. So I have to stay in control. And staying in control means staying in the past. Because why? Because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. The change that you go through is not always so clean, organized, and totally predictable. It's going to be painful. It's going to be something you don't want to look at. It's something that you've been managing, working through, but you've come to realize that the old part of who you are no longer needs to be there because you're tired of it. You get exhausted emotionally and mentally and spiritually. So when you become aware, that is just the beginning. And the awareness is awesome because what that allows you to do is recognize where that emotion is really intense with very little effort. That's the good news. You don't need a new technique, a new self-help book to somehow change on the inside. You have to develop self-awareness to notice what is going on. Once you notice what's going on and you write that down and you get clear about it, that reduces that emotional charge on the inside, and that awareness itself becomes part of the experience. But then we have to take action going forward. It starts with awareness and it ends with evidence. That's all I'm going to say on this episode. Have a great day. See you on the next one. Take care.